Here's the hand of cards that my dad was dealt. At 12 years old, his dad walked out of his life and his family and didn't speak to him for a while. I was 12 years old when we got a phone call at our house one day. And on that phone call, I answered it, and somebody on the other line goes, "Hey, who's this?" And I said, "Well, this is Joel, I'm 12. And he goes, "Well, this is your grandpa." And I said, "No, it's not." Because I knew the voice of my grandfather, who was actually my step-grandfather, but I never saw him that way because he was filling all the roles of a grandfather. Well, this man was on the other side of the line, and he's saying, "I'm your grandfather." And I said, "No, you're not." And he goes, "I'm Gerald Fritz." And now all of a sudden there's that name that I've written, Joel Fritz, on every single assignment that I had up, in school, up to that point in school. And I'm going, oh. And that is exactly how I responded when he said, "Gerald Fritz." I go, "Oh." But then I'm so glad later on in life, as time has gone by, that I look back on this moment and I'm the one who picked up the phone and I'm getting to understand my dad in a new way. Because the time difference from when my dad was 12 years old to this moment that I'm standing here at 12 years old on the phone with my biological grandfather, 25 years. And so my dad's dad didn't talk to him for 25 years, nor did my dad's dad leave him an inheritance. He had an inheritance to give, and he gave it to his other kids, but he didn't give it to my dad. And even in another powerful message, even in the midst of that darkness and just like that ugliness, that a dad would abandon his kid and not even count him as his own child, that one of his stepbrothers actually gave him a little bit of their inheritance just because they recognized that here's the biological son of this man, carries his name, and he doesn't even include him in his inheritance. But here's how this story ends, Mark, and this is why I think it's so powerful, is that my dad at some point recognized this man's never going to fill that role. And I think oftentimes we have to recognize that not even our own dads are going to fill that role. But my dad said, but that doesn't have to be my story, because I trust that God the Father has a greater story for me. And he engaged a story where he said, now I'm having boys. And what was the father that I want? And he believed that the plan that the Lord had for him was different than the plan that he was currently experiencing. And he pushed into that, and he gave me the father that he never had. He was the father for me and my brothers that he never had the opportunity, never had an example, never had any of that. But he believed that the Lord wanted something different and began to see God as his true father.